You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan Sports Truth seekers, and welcome to the Michigan Sports Truth episode 245 on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith via Facebook Messenger. We hope everyone had a great Christmas this year because we are closing out the year 2016. Ed, how was your Christmas?
Pretty well, pretty fine, Taylor. Had some nice gifts, able to see some family, watch some great basketball. Fortunately, that was ruined the next night with the Monday Night Football game. We'll talk shortly. But other than that, I had a very fine holiday. Obviously, one reason why we're doing this a little bit later than our usual is, unfortunately, Taylor, you had to deal with a minor health issue, but luckily and fortunately, it was treated, you were released from care, and we're able to do this episode. So I'm ready to hop right to it as soon as you are.
Yep. Lots of Lions to talk about, and we're going to start with their Cowboys 42-21 loss at AT&T Stadium.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
On ESPN Monday Night Football, that is. The first half of that contest was a war. Zach Zenner scored 2 touchdowns in that game. Stafford scored the other from 1 yard out. But then the Lions offense tailed off again in the second half and let the Cowboys get away while their defense, especially against the receivers, and even against the run, was nowhere. They allowed 164 rushing yards. Zach Zenner was a bright side for the Lions in the first half, but the coaching staff didn't use him in the second half, and there's no reason why. But there were a lot of Lions fans whining and complaining and bitching about the referee during and after the game when they watched it. The bigger problem the Lions organization is having, however, is with their coaching staff. And the fans should get upset about that. The Lions, meanwhile, only committed 5 penalties for 62 yards, while the Cowboys committed 8 for 47. Matthew Stafford finished 26 of 46 for 260 yards and an interception. But 2 touchdown handoffs and 1 touchdown quarterback keeper. Dak Prescott, 15 of 20 for 212 and 3 scores. Eric Ebron, 8 catches for 93. Zach Zenner, 12 carries for 67 yards along with his 2 scores. Now, and let's talk about the Lions defense, especially in the rushing game. The rushing defense, 164 yards allowed. That's pretty uncharacteristic, but the Cowboys were 12-2 12-2-0 going into their game against the Lions, and the Cowboys were not going to let up.
No, they weren't. And on the subject of whether or not saying the Lions looked a little bit uncharacteristic in their run defense, well, one good reason is they were going up against arguably the best running back in the league this year, who also happens to be a surefire lock for Rookie of the Year and possibly a candidate for MVP, and Ezekiel Elliott. So that was a big issue coming into the game. For the most part, if you look on the numbers on paper, you could say that the defense contained Elliott, holding him to about only 80 yards total and that lone and 2 touchdowns. But like you said, that's where the look on paper ends, because Elliott was able to get his vintage plays out. One play, his first touchdown was like a 59-yard sprint. That was the result of a blown, I guess you could say a blown execution of a blitz. Elliott took advantage of that, used a great cutback action, and it was off to the race from that. As for his second touchdown, it was near the goal line, and it was actually a result of a defensive pass interference penalty. We'll get to the subject of the quality of the officiating, but that touchdown was set up by that penalty called on Detroit. Another thing that really helped out with this whole second half thing was the turnovers. Well, not necessarily the turnovers, because that second fumble was near the end and in garbage time, but that interception by Stafford was an absolute turning point. There's no doubt about it. Even looking back on the play, you have no idea what Stafford was doing. It's like he was starting to run, to scramble with the ball. Then at the very last second, thought he could, fit in a tight hole. Immediately pulled up and throwing across his body, or with his body turning to the left. Just not good technique on that, and of course it led to it being underthrown slightly and the interception. So it was obviously the turning point of the game was right there. Dallas, being the great team that they are, took advantage of it, scored a touchdown, and with the Lions' defense, like I said, because their offense was unable to be efficient enough in terms of trying to make responding drives, that they got the defense back on the field, and with how Dallas they operate, it was only a matter of time before Detroit's defense got tired, and it led to that laugher of a second half that we saw, in which Dallas scored 21, Detroit got nothing. Caused some mistakes. I mentioned the fumble by Stafford, as well as the interception by Stafford. Another big mistake also. Matt Prater, the usually reliable kicker for Detroit this year, missed a 47 or 48-yard field goal late in the third quarter that it wouldn't have gone right back in it, but it would at least trim the deficit and give the Lions something to look forward to. The defense said, hey, get one stop, get a touchdown, we're back in it. But no, it was a miss, and it gave Dallas short field, and of course they took advantage of it, went down the field and scored anyway, and the game was essentially over right then and there. To be honest with you, I'll be honest, I turned the game off after the third quarter, after that missed kick, because I was just so disgusted. And luckily, through my notifications on my phone, my ESPN app, being notified of when Dallas scored again and when the game was over, I didn't miss anything. So I saved myself a night of aggravation by making my decision the way I did. But it was just not a good night all around. And I'll say it. You alluded to it earlier, Taylor, by fans, I guess you could say, were complaining of how the officials acted. I will say there were at least a couple ticky-tack calls. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. No, it was not the sole reason that Dallas beat our asses in the second half, but they definitely were a beneficiary of a couple of in my opinion, ticky-tack calls. If you want to say there was contact on that first pass interference that led to a touchdown in the first half, between Batamosi on Des Bryant, sure, you can say there was contact. But then again, look at the replay, and obviously if you're the official, which was right in front of them as the play was happening, Des Bryant clearly and blatantly grabbed and twisted Batamosi's head, his helmet, by the face mask. You would have to think by that law, by that rule, by definition, shouldn't there have been also another flag for offensive face mask or hands to the face on Bryant? I mean, just a couple of days earlier, we saw Mark Ingram of the Saints get called for an offensive face mask, hands to the face penalty. You would think, why couldn't they do the same? And I'm not going to, obviously the cliche is because they're the Cowboys, but I won't even play up that excuse. I'm just going to call out the official for making a bad job. And as for the second defensive pass interference, very, very minimal contact. I didn't see contact at all whatsoever. Yes, his head was not turned, but what contact was there? Besides, it was still a catchable ball. Des just dropped the ball and he just threw the flag. So, very laughable. And then, even to top it all off, on that touchdown, from that second touchdown that I mentioned from Bryant, that is when, if you saw again on the play, one of the offensive linemen for Dallas fucking tackles the defensive player for the Lions to the ground. If that's not a pure definition of holding, I don't know what the fuck is. And speaking on the topic of holding, I get it. Listen, I got no qualms about Dallas with their offensive line. They are a stud-filled offensive line with multiple Pro Bowls to prove it. But you got to think at least one or more, so a couple more holding calls could have been called in that game, especially like I mentioned on that second Zeke Elliott touchdown. Again, those two calls right there at least helped in a way Dallas get those points, which pushed out that deficit, which led to the final score that we saw. Again, I reiterate, the officials were not the sole reason or the main reason that the Lions lost this game. The fact that their defense did not perform well in the second half, and the fact that their quarterback and their offense did not execute, that is why they lost. But the officials, in my opinion, they do not get absolved from any sort of critique or criticism, in my view.
Well, those are the type of guys in the NFL being employed in the NFL that should be fired, just like the Big Ten referees should be fired after they screwed Michigan against the Ohio State Buckeyes in the game. And the poor officiating continues to occur, not only in the Big Ten but also in the NFL, and it's a crime. It's not the main, as we both pointed out, it's not the main reason why our teams lose, but it's very, very critical and detrimental to how it affects their play.
It takes a definite. It's a mental thing, really. It creates a mental barrier of sorts if you feel that you've been done wrong by an official in a crucial key play, and then all of a sudden it leads to the opposing team taking advantage of getting points as a result of that. That is not so much a physical thing to overcome, but a mental thing. Mentally, if it gets to you like that psychologically, it may affect your ability in terms of trying to how can you respond, how can you strike back. And I think a little bit, not completely or majorly, but just a slight minimal amount of that affected how the Lions performed in that second half.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. There needs to be some ramifications. There should be some suspensions for not doing their damn job.
At least a fine. I'll take a fine.
Yeah, I'll take a fine for the first punishment. For the first punishment, a fine, a suspension, the second, and termination, the third.
Yeah, I mean, listen, yeah, I agree some accountability needs to be taken here. Now, that being said, I can't be too serious with it. It's not like this was some type of Tim Donaghy fixed bullshit, or it's not even as bad as the picked up flag in the playoff game a couple years ago, even though, like I said, I told you then, as I'll tell you now, the Lions still had a chance to win that game because they got the ball back there at midfield, about 30 or 50 seconds left, and Stafford fumbled the fucking ball. So that was still, at the end of the day, the officials, yes, they majorly fucked up in that one, but even still, that was not the sole reason that the Lions lost that game, as it was in this game as well.
Right. So, moving forward to their playoff scenario, the Lions are now tied for the lead in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers at 9-6-0. The Lions still have a chance to win the division and even get a first-round bye, or just make the playoffs. But here's the playoff scenario: the Lions can clinch a wild card berth with only a Washington Redskins loss, but without even having to win or tie. The Lions can win the division, the NFC North, by beating the Green Bay Packers. but only the NFC North. Now here's how they can get that first round bye. They can beat the Packers and hope the Redskins don't win in any way, shape, or form. They can either lose or tie. Plus, the Falcons have to lose as well. The Atlanta Falcons.
Taylor, I think you misread that. I think actually it reads that they need the Seahawks to lose, since
Yes.
Seattle currently
Yes, Seattle. Yes.
That's ahead of them in the NFC rankings.
The Seattle Seahawks. I'm a little asleep here, but
Right. You get it. The fact that you're even doing this is very commendable on your part.
yeah, I have so much passion. I'm trying to fight through this, but a win, a Seattle Seahawks loss or tie, and an Atlanta Falcons loss to get that first round bye. So
Yep.
that leads us to this Sunday's game against the Green Bay Packers at Ford Field, which was transitioned to Sunday Night Football on NBC at 8:30. So, with that being said, it's time to look at the matchup here. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. Packers have suffered quite a few injuries as of late, but they've come on strong, especially with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, as typically, and they've got momentum.
Yeah, I remember when Rodgers said in a radio interview when Green Bay was not looking quite good. He said, and I quote, "We're going to run the table," and they responded. His team, I guess, followed the salvo of their leader, their captain, and they've run off this incredible 5-game winning streak. Now, granted, they did play the Bears, the horrible, shitty Chicago Bears, but still, even that had to require them blowing a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter, but then Rodgers throwing a bomb to Jordy Nelson on the very next drive to set up the Mason Crosby game-winning field goal. And yes, they did play the now in a tailspin Minnesota Vikings at home on Christmas Eve. So even though it was a little bit of a back-and-forth offensive display in the first half, Green Bay completely took over in the second half. Easy win for them. One of the things of this winning streak that did impress me, though, is how they absolutely demolished and destroyed the Seattle Seahawks at home in primetime fashion. Just absolute, complete and total ass whooping is what they gave them. So the confidence that is obviously the mental edge, you could say, is in Green Bay's advantage because of how just getting to this point, and obviously with Detroit, losing their last two. This sets it all up. Sunday night, primetime game. Literally everything is on the line here. Division title, a playoff spot for either team. It all comes down to this, and it seems like, like I said, it's one of my points of my keys to the game of how I mentioned it's for the marbles, for all the marbles, because that's what it is. There is a reason why this game was flexed to Sunday night. A couple of reasons, because this was the only division title that's yet to be decided, essentially. And you got one of the game's best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback, in Aaron Rodgers. You have a resurgent Packers team trying to complete an amazing comeback, run the table, win 6 games in a row, and win a division. And it's a Detroit team that has not won a division title in over 20 years, looking for their first ever NFC North title, because the last division title that they won, I believe it was the Norris title. So it's a lot of intriguing and interesting elements for what should be a very dramatic game.
Now, Aaron Rodgers' favorite target is wide receiver Jordy Nelson. He's the guy to watch. He's one of the guys to watch. He's the guy to watch, the main guy to watch. He's got 38 receptions for 528 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. During that winning streak, they've won 5 in a row. Rodgers threw 4 touchdown passes, 2 of them to Nelson. in the 34-27 win over the Lions at Lambeau Field earlier this season. Right now, Aaron Rodgers has a 370.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Taylor. My apologies. I was going to say briefly that the impact that Jordy Nelson has made has been quite large and looming, especially when you take into consideration the fact that he missed last year, all of last season, to an ACL injury, I believe. So to say that the Packers and Packer fans are very happy and glad to have Nelson back is a gigantic understatement.
Yeah. Right now, Jordy Nelson has 91 catches for 1,191 yards and 14 touchdowns. Rodgers is 374 of 571 for 4,128 yards, 36 touchdown passes, and just 7 interceptions, compared to Matthew Stafford's 362 of 553 for 3,980 yards, 22 touches, and 9 picks. Ty Montgomery at running back, 69 carries, 413 yards. The Lions' rushing defense didn't try to be too didn't look too terrible against the Cowboys, but 164 rushing yards, kind of unacceptable even against a 12-2 team. But now my key to the game is for all Lions units to step up and step it up a few notches, and just put every pedal to the metal and full throttle and go and push everything into overdrive if necessary. Because you are in super desperation mode, and you got your home field advantage, the home crowd at Ford Field. You must not make any mistakes whatsoever. Cut down on the turnovers, this and that, etc. Play way more consistently at all costs in all departments, especially on defense.
Essentially, they're probably going to have to overachieve of their usual standards, is what you're saying. They have to play as close to a perfect game as possible, especially against, in my opinion, especially if Green Bay completes this, an MVP candidate in Rodgers yet again. And there's also another element added into this, and if you want to talk about mental edge or psychological edge, the last time that the Packers played in Detroit against the Lions, we all know what happened. The Hail Mary seen around the world that got endless fucking replays. You know they had to do the replays leading up to this one. We're probably going to see at least 5 billion of those during the telecast on Sunday night. So that could be another added element that for Detroit, that's something that they have to overcome, knowing how they were this close to beating Green Bay last year in Detroit, and then they led, admittedly, somewhat controversial face mask penalty, which led to that Hail Mary, but still, they brought that on themselves by not having the right personnel out there. For some reason, Jim Caldwell saying, I didn't expect that play to happen when, hello, it's Aaron fucking Rodgers. It's the last play of the game, and it's close enough of field range. Of course he's not throwing Hail Mary. But I digress.
How could Caldwell not expect that?
Oh my God! Don't get me started. So when you factor all that in, this is exactly. So it is another added element that Detroit's going to have to work themselves through. Like you mentioned, Taylor, no turnovers, no mistakes, no fuck ups. Another big key here, in my opinion, and in regards to the health of some of our players here. You know for certain, Theo Riddick, he's going to be out again with that wrist injury. I'm sure the Lions could have really used him in these last few games, especially against the Giants, my God. But offensively, as long as Jim Bob Cooter doesn't get too dumbed down with some of his calls, some of the play calls that he makes, doesn't get too cute or whatever, or knows what to do when near the red zone, near the end zone in the red zone, the offense should be fine. My main concern is, will Darius Slay play? This is the Lions' best cornerback. He's missed the past few games now with a hamstring injury. Obviously, he was badly needed and missed on Monday night because Botomos got actually picked on by being placed against Des Bryant. So the question is, will Darius Slay play? Will Big Play Slay even be able to make a big play, if he plays or not? Especially even if he plays, because hamstring injuries are not something you can turn around from like it's a sprained finger. So very interesting to see. That is the big question mark. Will be number 23 in blue.
I almost forgot another portion to my key of the game. The secondary defense must not doze off. They need to play 60 minutes of football, 60 minutes of defense, and take away the deep ball like they did against the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees. Try come up with 3 interceptions against Aaron Rodgers. That's your new goal. In fact, push it to 5.
Taking off Rodgers is easier said than done because A, he doesn't stand around and like a standing human target. B, he gets the ball out fast, and C, even on broken plays, he's even, I would say, arguably more dangerous. He can use his legs, get out in open field, and by an innate sense of knowing where his a connection or whatever that he and his receivers have, he's able to, even on broken plays where he's scrambling around, able to find out, get the ball out there. Like, for instance, Jordy Nelson, how many times have we seen Nelson and Rodgers connect on a touchdown where Rodgers had to scramble out of a broken play? We saw it again last week against Minnesota. So that is another key factor that the Lions are going to have to work on and worry about. Even on the scramble, Rodgers is and always will be dangerous.
Yep. So that's why we also call on their defensive front to bring the max splits. But first, they have to read every formation well, whether it's a run or a pass. If it's a pass, then they bring the max splits on Aaron Rodgers. Give him hell.
And they should be facing, and I think they'll probably have a slightly better time with penetration because they won't be facing the best offensive line this week as they did facing Dallas last week.
Right. So let me go back to that website here on ESPN.com. The spread is 4 points. The Lions are a 4-point underdog now. The matchup predictors says 61.3% say the Packers will win. The over-under is 50. Now it's time for our prediction. Ed, I'll let you go first.
Oh boy, what else could I say that has to be said? This is literally win or go home, in my opinion, because, fuck what the Washington Giants game would be early on. That's almost irrelevant. You can't be focusing too much on what other teams are going to be trying to do. This is your division, your chance, in your house. You fucking go out there and find a way to win it. Question is, how can you? Can you? Will you? I say it's going to come down to which quarterback has the ball last. And I'll put my neck out there one more time. I say Matthew Stafford, late in this game, he's got the ball in his hands. You need a late drive. He'll get us down the field. He's going to either get us a touchdown or a field goal. I say the Lions will win this game, but it's going to be a very close one. I think it's going to go over in terms of the 50 points combined. I say Detroit 28, Green Bay 27.
Okay. Well, considering the Packers have momentum right now and the Lions are trending downward a little bit, it's going to come down to who wants it more in the end, and I think I think the Packers are going to take this one by either 7 or 10. I'm gonna make it 31-21 Green Bay. I know Detroit's desperate, but again, those mistakes, those turnovers, those inconsistencies, I just have a bad feeling that they're going to continue, regardless how much home field crowd energy they use. It doesn't matter unless it distracts them a little bit, but I'm picking the Packers to win 31-21.
Again, that's I don't have an issue with that. I wouldn't be surprised with either outcome. You know, this is essentially close to a pick'em. Even though the spread doesn't indicate it, this feels like a pick'em to me. So, if you have a different prediction, that's totally reasonable.
Yep. So we must transition to college football, and we're gonna shake things up a bit and preview the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. We got to go in chronological order here. The undefeated Western Michigan Broncos play the 10-3 Wisconsin Badgers, who beat the Penn State Nittany Lions by 2 points, 27-25, if I recall, in the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis. Zach Terrell against Alex Hornibrook. That's going to be the quarterback matchup in that Cotton Bowl. Jarvion Franklin and Corey Clement. And Corey Davis versus Jazz Peavy. Terrell, 247, 349 yards, 3,376 yards, 32 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, compared to Hornibrook's 8 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions, just 1,243 yards. That is insurmountable. I think Western Michigan's offense is really going to kill Wisconsin, even if Wisconsin had a stout defense. I'm gonna say, just to be fair, Western Michigan 37, Wisconsin 19.
Wow. I think for Western, there's a lot of things going on for him. This is a chance to complete an undefeated regular season. Truly astoundingly historic season for the football team and football program in general. But it's a tough uphill matchup because they're going to be facing a Wisconsin team who, in my opinion, were a couple close plays away from, you could possibly say, playing for the college football playoff. They had the close loss against Michigan, the close loss next week against Ohio State, and a close loss in the Big Ten title game. Flip those 3 decisions into wins. That's an undefeated season for them. Big Ten championship and the Final Four spot. So this is no Wisconsin team to snort at. And what is the backbone and DNA of Wisconsin football? Stingy defense, run the fucking football down your throat. So if you're Western, that's the one thing you can definitely expect. They are going to ram that ball down your throat and up your ass if need be. So that's going to be one big key for Western to stop the run. And another thing for me will be to force turnovers because Alex Hornibrook, he's improved leaps and bounds, but he's still a freshman. We saw that come up against Michigan. We'll see how Western can do. Will be forcing pressure or using great disguise with zone coverage to get Hornibrook in a position to where he makes a bad throw, interception, and you make him pay for it on the other end. It's a very intriguing matchup. Western, without question, deserves a chance to play on this stage. I think Wisconsin's too strong for them. I think their defense is... Remember, this is far different from some of the teams that they play in the MAC conference. This is, some will argue the third or second best team in the Big Ten, between in that gaggle or the 4, because Penn State's the champion and all, but between Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin, those are the top tier teams in that conference. And, we've seen how the Big Ten has had a great presence in these New Year's Six bowls this year, especially in the playoff with Ohio State. So, because I know this is a big step up in competition, I'm going to actually say that Wisconsin will get it done. My friend's wife is going to kill me for this because she's a big Western fan. I say Wisconsin's going to win 28-17. Their running game is going to be too much, and their defense is very stout. So I say, sorry guys, there will be no rolling of any boats in the Cotton Bowl. It's going to be on Wisconsin for a very, very nice victory, a needed victory after the heartbreaks they've suffered this season.
I may have to change my prediction, and I was just thinking of it. Western Michigan was playing an easy MAC schedule, even against a tough Toledo team. The Western Michigan Broncos came up with a victory by at least two scores, and then they had to hang on against the Ohio Bobcats 29-23 in the MAC championship at Ford Field in Detroit. So I'm going to pick Wisconsin to win even a closer margin by 6 points. I think Wisconsin's running game is going to edge Zach Terrell's passing game and win 35-29. But like I said, it's more offensive of a game. So expect fireworks, no matter who comes out on top. But I think Wisconsin wins 35-29. So we're going to move on to, guess what? The Michigan Wolverines.
Touchdown, Michigan!
Well, after coming off a blatant robbery of a heartbreaking loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Wolverines get a much-needed mental rest before playing tomorrow against the Florida State Seminoles in the Capital One Orange Bowl. Kickoff it's tonight, rather. Tonight. It's tonight at 8. That's this Friday at 8, the night before New Year's Eve. The Capital One Orange Bowl on ESPN. Wolverines 10-2, Seminoles 9-3. The Wolverines offense had struggled as of late the last 3 games since Wilton Speight broke his collarbone. And the rest of the offense hasn't done too well, but Michigan's defense still kept giving them chances to win. In fact, going back to that 4th and 1 play, like you pointed out, the defense clearly held J.T. Barrett short of that 15-yard line, and we know the referees gave the Ohio State Buckeyes the spot. They reviewed it. They tried the best they could to overturn it, and they actually couldn't. They couldn't do it. But that wasn't hard. That was so damn easy that they should have overturned it without a doubt, without hesitation, without wasting another couple minutes. But the Wolverines have to move on. They got the Florida State Seminoles coming up, and if you're the Michigan Wolverines, you have to win that game to keep up with the college football playoff top rankings going into 2017.
This is a definite test, I should say, in terms of planting the seeds and laying the groundwork for the next season for 2017. Much like, in a way, how the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl or the Citrus Bowl, it was against Florida on New Year's Day. It has that same kind of feeling. Yeah, it doesn't help that you're facing another team from the Sunshine State as well. So there's some similarities, yet there's not similarities here. One big non-similarity is that both teams have outstanding defensive lines. Michigan's, we all know how stout Michigan's is, but Florida State's is no slouch either. According to Juicy Hallett on Twitter, you can follow him on Twitter at Juicy Hallett, 2 L's, 2 T's. One big key is this matchup is, can Michigan's offensive line create enough good protection for Wilton Speight? Because Florida State's defense, they are ranked 3rd in terms of adjusted sack percentage. One big reason is their defensive line, their defensive tackle, Demarius Walker, an absolute beast of a player. One of, if not the best DeMarcus Walker, one of, if not the best defensive linemen in the whole damn nation. He's got 15 sacks on the year, 6'4", 280. He plays end, yet he's absolute brute force that you can almost plug him anywhere on the line, and he'll still get production for you. So Michigan's offensive line, they got their work cut out for them in spades. On the flip side, though, so does Florida State. We saw how Michigan's D-line has performed all year with the likes of Taco Charlton, Chris Wormley, Mo Hurst, even the freshman Rashawn Gary. Clearly saw how much of a factor it did in getting them an advantage to almost win against Ohio State, where they had at least 6 to 8 sacks against JT Barrett. They absolutely demolished Ohio State's offensive line in that regard. But it won't be easy. Another key, though, to this is, can they stop Dalvin Cook from cooking? It's similar. If you want to do a compare and contrast, it's like when the Lions, what they had to do to stop or contain Ezekiel Elliott. That's what Michigan has to do against Dalvin Cook. He's one of, if not the best running backs in the country. He's got over 1,600 yards carrying on the ground, as well as 18 touchdowns. In fact, over the past 2 seasons, he ranks 3rd in FBS total with almost 3,981 yards from scrimmage. So that's almost 4,000 yards from scrimmage every time he's touched the ball within the past 2 seasons. He also ranks tied for 4th in FBS with 10-yard or more plays, 125 in those last 2 seasons. And in addition to the 18 yards scored this year, he has a sum total of 39 touchdowns scored in the past 2 years, which again ranks him 3rd in FBS. So the Wolverines, they got their work cut out from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint. They got to stop Dalvin from cooking. They got to protect Wilton Spates. And for Wilton Spates' case, for his sake, he cannot have a repeat of what he did against Ohio State. Whereas we want to see more of, I guess you could say, the Dr. Jekyll, finding great seams, knowing what to do with the ball, using great elusiveness, finding your targets. But he can't be Mr. Hyde. He can't be making bad decisions, causing turnovers, because that was one reason why Ohio State was to stay in that game as long as they did. 3 bad turnovers by Wilton Spate. So we can't have that same kind of performance tonight. If Spate keeps his mistakes under control, Michigan's defensive line does what they need to do. And even if Dalvin Cook gets his a little bit, as long as you don't let him take over the whole entire game, to me, this should be a very fair and fine matchup that favors the Wolverines. So, in terms of prediction score, I'm going to say Michigan. The spread is 7, so Michigan is favored by 7. So I say Michigan, they will win and cover. The final score is going to be 24-13.
All right. I am going to predict Michigan to win 27-21.
Close.
Mm-hmm. And their basketball team took a very long Christmas break.
For 3, yes, sir.
Now they're back in action, and they begin Big Ten action Sunday at 12:15 on New Year's Day, p.m. Eastern, on BTN against the Iowa Hawkeyes from Kinnick Stadium. Ed, you have a preview of that?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of, there's a lot of things that for Michigan in this matchup here. A, it's a starter conference schedule. B, it's against, I would say, an okay team in Iowa, but can torch you on any given night. And it's also on the road. And Michigan, they have not done well at all on the road this year. In fact, they've played terrible on the road. They've yet to get a road win. And whereas the Hawkeyes are 7-2 at home. So it's going to be on the Wolverines to overcome that mental barrier of trying to They can't do too much because they want to get that road win so badly. They can't do too much. Another key is they got to make their shots. This is a team that is you talk about Jekyll and Hyde. I mentioned Jekyll and Hyde earlier with Will Spade. This is, an offense that can go Jekyll and Hyde within the game. They can hit 10 threes and a half, and yet they can go silent for 5 minutes. You never know what you're going to get with this team. Mo Wagner seems to be one of their consistent performers. I still have no fucking idea what Zach Ervin is. I don't know if he wants to be a sharpshooter or a bricklayer. In terms of protecting the ball, one reason why they fall behind sometimes in some of these games against high quality or even quality opponents is they make too many mistakes turning the ball. And in terms of protecting the ball or being efficient and productive with the ball, like I mentioned before, with sometimes the scoring droughts of lasting 4 or 5 minutes, they need to have better and more smarter possessions with the ball, i.e., more ball movement, share the route to the teammates, and no 5-second possessions where try to find a guy who's quality open and he tries to hit a 35-foot jump shot. That shit's not going to work. Try to get Mo Wagner involved as much as possible. He's your de facto big man, so get him involved as much as you can, even though you don't have that advantage in the paint. One player, though, that you really got to look out here is Peter Jock, or Jock. It's spelled J-O-K. I'm going to say Jock. He's the starting guard for Iowa. Averages 22 points a game on 44% shooting with a 93% success rate at the free throw line. In addition to that, he also averages over 6 rebounds a game as well. So this is one of the star players that Michigan has to look out for. And also, in terms of, like I mentioned, with the turnovers, Iowa steals the ball at an average rate of 7 times a game with about 4 blocks per game as well. So taking care of the ball is key here for the Wolverines if they want to win this game and get off to a good start with conference play.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And how about the Spartans, though? They came back from down 14 and won 75-74 in overtime over the Minnesota Golden Gophers at Williams Arena. Nick Ward leading the charge. The Spartans, under head coach Tom Izzo, who has coached them for years, the Spartans actually were showing life.
Valentine for the win!
For once they were. Granted, it wasn't the type of life that you like to see, but they found a way to suck it up, pull it together, and get the win when it mattered most. Alvin Ellis III making those 2 free throws the way he did at the end of the game, 10 seconds left in overtime. His 20 points were key and crucial. As was Nick Ward as well. He had a 20-plus point performance as well. Still, there was not so much. They still had to overcome some deficiencies, such as Aaron Harris having a very low shooting night. I think only had 3 points total. Also, again, they still have to factor in that Miles Bridges, their forward, was still out with an ankle injury. So, in terms of filling that gap, they had to depend on a couple of other freshmen, like Winston, for instance, averaging 12 and 9, whereas Ward, in the game since Bridges has been out, 17 and 8 were his averages, and that, of course, was before his display against. Excuse me, I'm waiting for this screen to load up here. For his production, his 22-point production against Minnesota, which included 9 of 14 shooting. Very paltry line though, for the free throws. Only 4 of 13. Got to fix that. Thank goodness for Elvis making those free throws. Otherwise, we would have lost. So, good start to the conference schedule for the Spartans. Big win, big road win. And they're just waiting for Bridges to get back to see if they can get stronger before they get to the meat and potatoes of this conference schedule.
Yep. So, in just a few minutes, they're going to tip-off in their first conference home game against the Northwestern Wildcats at 6 o'clock on BTN, 6 o'clock tip-off time at Breslin Center, the Spartans and Wildcats. Tune in, folks. My Central Michigan Chippewas are playing the Chicago State Cougars. Right now, tip-off started at 5:30. Last I checked, they were 11-9 with 14:29 left in the first half. Cougars in the lead. Let's see if this loads up. Yeah. Gonna keep updating this. Still 11 and it still shows 11-9, and looks like we may have a delay at McGurk Arena. But anyway, very close start, a very close battle between those two to tip that one off. Then the Chippewas begin Mid-American Conference play, MACtion, at the Eastern Michigan Eagles Tuesday, January 3rd at 7. Their next home game is January 10th against the Akron Zips at 7. Now, we transition from college to pro basketball.
Left sideline three, and he answers.
Pistons fought a hard game against the Golden State Warriors. Yet they lost 119 to 113. Steph Curry was making his moves, but the Pistons were lacking defense against other players such as Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala. I mean, those are a very talented bunch of guys that can play as a team, and they proved it.
Going off at 32.
Mm-hmm. We apologize for the static on Ed's end here. I don't know what's happening here, but the game. Yep. Yeah, I can hear you. That tipped off Friday night, but the Pistons defense woke up and took advantage of LeBron James's absence by beating the Cleveland Cavaliers on Monday night 106-90. Yet Andre Drummond was 1 for 7 from the free throw line, but the team played much better in those last three games. Those last two games before taking a pounding to the Milwaukee Bucks, 119-94. And in those two losses, the defense wasn't there. The first one being a very close, hard-fought battle, and the second just openly quitting against a division rival in the Bucks.
Yeah, another thing that didn't help out the Pistons was Jabari Parker, their high draft pick from Duke, went off. He had 31 points. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, a.k.a. the Greek Freak, an absolute all-around stud, one of the best in terms of future stars of the game that you really got to look out for, in terms of that can help carry that torch from the generation of this current generation, like LeBron or whatever. Giannis is one of those players that you really got to keep a watchful eye out for. He's got the size of a big, yet he can literally play every position. And that showed with him having 23 points and 8 rebounds, and I believe 6 assists as well. His contribution was a big main factor to Milwaukee winning this game in the laughable fashion that they did. Another thing, though, like you mentioned about Detroit's defense, their perimeter, their weakness of defending the three hurt them again. Milwaukee exactly 50% from the free throw, from beyond the arc. Completely unacceptable. They also shot 57% overall from field goal percentage range. and the Detroit's defense not forcing enough turnovers. Milwaukee only had 7 turnovers the whole entire game. You mix in all those together with the young athletic talents of Parker and Giannis, you're going to get the result most likely that you saw the other night. Don't excuse it, but still, it's not too much a surprise.
Yeah, you got to find some way to you got to find some way to turn things around, and the Pistons just weren't able to do that. They could have forced turnovers. I think that was about the only option left. When they were down in such a hole like that, it's go time, it's crunch time, it's comeback time. Why not change things up a bit? So the Pistons go on the road and play the Atlanta Hawks at Phillips Arena tonight at 8. Then they head to South Beach and play the Miami Heat Sunday at 6. Then they return home for 2 on Tuesday and Thursday against the Indiana Pacers and the Charlotte Hornets.
Hornets have looked pretty damn good this year, by the way.
Yeah, they
watch out for that one.
Oh yeah. Pacers not so great. The Pistons just have to take advantage. They have to pull their shit back together once more. See if they can keep it all together. But yeah, we already know this Andre Drummond stuff. He was incredible until those last 2 games where he went 1 for 7 from the free throw line against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he was sluggish against the Bucks as well from the stripe. That's just a no-brainer. That's just Andre Drummond. So,
not to mention 3 for 9 from the stripe against Golden State.
Oh yeah, yep. So make it the last 3. So there you go. Thanks very much.
Yeah, but so far though, he is doing, like I said, he's having a much better pace in terms of what his percentage may end up looking like right now. He's at 44% free throw shooting, which is a full 6, or 5.5, depending on how you look at it, for how he finished. I think he was below 30s below 40. He was at 38, 39 last year. He's currently a career average of 38.5. So, with him being now currently at 44.2, like you mentioned, that 7 for 10, he had a good 7 for 10 outing against Memphis. And then he's followed up with a 3 for 9 against Golden State, 1 for 7 against Cleveland, 2 for 6 against Milwaukee. So, another reason for Detroit, if they want to try to pick up some wins, Drummond he cannot revert back to his typical usual self. With his, I guess you could say, revert to his career average with his free throws. He's got to find a way to be smart and not smart, but he's got to find a way to pick that up.
Yep. There's no doubt about that one. Now we transition to hockey. This is a little bit surprising. The Red Wings have now won 2 out of their last 3 games.
About that.
They beat the Florida Panthers 4-3 in a shootout. Jared Coro got his first NHL win. Henrik Zetterberg got another shootout, game-winning shootout goal. Oh wait, that was in Winnipeg. Franz Nielsen got the game winner. Jared Coro didn't look too hot. He gave up a goal in the first 2 by the first 2 shooters, and then he stopped Nick Bukestad in round 3 to seal the Red Wings win. The shootout was 2-1. The game was 4-3. The Red Wings came back from 3-1 down in the second period to force overtime and win 4-3 in a shootout. Then they returned home on Tuesday, and they were honoring the 1997 Stanley Cup champion Detroit Red Wings for the very last time at Joe Louis Arena, and they let the Buffalo Sabres beat them 4-3 in regulation. Buffalo led 2-0 and 3-1. And in that game, the Red Wings had allowed the first goal of the game in their 10th consecutive game, and they paid dearly.
Yeah, that's one reason why they're at the current record that they're at right now, is because, like you mentioned, Taylor, now reaching a streak of 10 or so games where the opposing team scores first. They can't allow that to happen. If they want to try to reverse this trend, getting out to quicker starts and strong first blood is very essential, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And then they go to Ottawa and help the Senators honor Daniel Alfredsson's number and have his number, the banner of his number, retired to the Canadian Tire Center rafters. And the Red Wings finally score the game's first goal. That snaps a 10-game drought of giving up the first goal. They would win that one 3-2. Anthony Mantha would score his first NHL goal in an overtime period, and his second career game winner, Jared Coro, would win that game as well. He is 2-1-0 in his NHL debut. Peter Mrazek got pretty beat up against the Buffalo Sabres, but the defense didn't help him, despite the Red Wings outshooting the Sabres by a whole bunch. Their defense is still just fucking awful, and they never gave the Red Wings a chance, or much of a chance thereof, to win.
Yeah. No, but at least there's at least one good thing going for this team. It's your boy, Anthony Mantha. In his last 5 games, he's gotten 3 goals, 6 points, 15 shots on goal, so he's attacking the net. And from this one, courtesy of our boy, Prashant Iyer, follow him on Twitter at Iyer, IYER _Prashant, PRASHANTH. Y'all had a 5-on-5 score adjusted CF percentage of 57% flat. Fun stat also, by the way, this one was courtesy of all people, John Keating. Anthony Mantha became the first Red Wings rookie with points and tallied in 5 consecutive games since some guy by the name of Sergei Fedorov. Wonder what happened. Wonder what became of him. Anyways, more numbers though that credits to how much of a valuable asset Mantha has been since his call up. This is the following tweet again from Iyer, Prashant Iyer. The line that features Tatar, Zetterberg, and Mantha. By the way, Tatar, who scored that breakaway goal, might I add. That line has had a 59.64 5-on-5 score adjusted CF percentage for this season. That's obviously, that means that's been your most productive line in terms of getting quality goals and production for your offense. It just comes down to what the fuck can the rest of your team do now? Because it seems like, when he gets back, when he's healthy, Jimmy Howard has been your best goalie. You have a great line with Zetterberg and Mantha, but that's just it. And that kind of explains where this team is at. I mean, another example. So it speaks to that. It speaks to how this team needs to do something, whether it be moving around players or make some adjustments in other lines, not the Tatar, Zetterberg, Mantha line, but other lines. Try and see if we can shake things up, get some better production, and win some games.
Yeah, and if the Red Wings want to just keep their playoff streak going just for absolutely nothing, they better put their pedal to the metal and start winning more games and keep winning. But I still think this playoff streak has to come to an end. I think you agree with me on this one.
Yeah, more so from the standpoint of I want Ken Holland gone, but also it'll be a little bit poetic in the sense of you're shutting down the Joe. Well, shut down the Joe and shut down the playoff streak all in one get go. Two birds with one stone, I would say.
Yep, that's true. And how's Chris Ilitch going to have to deal with that in the near future? Who knows, right?
We shall see.
Yep. So you mentioned Jimmy Howard, how great he's been. Jimmy Howard's injury is now a lower body injury. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks total. Caro is going to be the backup to Peter Mrazek. I think Caro should get more time in between the pipes than Mrazek as of right now. Just a little bit more than Mrazek. Not a whole lot more, but a little bit more. Because Caro's goals against average is just a little bit lower than Mrazek's goals against average as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a couple roster move. Tyler Bertuzzi and defenseman Brian Lashoff were sent back down to the AHL affiliate, the Grand Rapids Griffins. And Tomas Jurko could have been sent down, but wasn't because Riley Sheahan was out with an upper body injury going into the Ottawa game. So Tomas Jurko had to play. And when Sheahan gets back, maybe Jurko can finally be sent down.
Yeah. That could be a possibility, big possibility.
Mm-hmm. So now we look at the upcoming schedule. On New Year's Day in Toronto against the Maple Leafs in the 100th Centennial Classic at 3 on NBC, January 1st. Then they begin their 3-game West Coast swing at the Ducks, Kings, and Sharks Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 10:30. And then at the Dallas Stars and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Quite interesting to see how that Centennial Classic will go. If you want to say this is the sequel of sorts to the Winter Classic from the Big House a couple years ago, go right ahead. But we'll see how that one plays out.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But after that, it's going to be a tough schedule for the Red Wings. And we're going to see how they fare from there. How they cough each game up. So, moving on to one team left, and that is the Tigers.
That one is long gone.
They have welcomed back second baseman Omar Infante and signed him to a minor league deal. Ed, your thoughts on that?
I don't mind it. I like Omar. I've always liked Omar. I guess it's from the nostalgia standpoint of when I was younger. I was watching him sticking through being one of our most productive players through bad teams. We're talking 03 to 05 here. I was very happy when he was brought on back a couple of years back. Now, he went on to win a World Series with the Royals. Now he's back on a minor league deal. Could give you a better backup option to second base for Kinsler than Micah Vilas, the likes of Micah Vilas and whatnot. So I'm very fine to see that. Also, while we're on the subject of the roster, guess who's back again? Alex Avila's back. Tell a friend. His dad, Al Avila, the general manager for the team, I guess, was probably going to said, the nepotism accusations be damned. We need a good player. We need a good backup catcher here. And compared to, and I think they made it very, I guess you could say, almost a steal in a way by bringing Alex Avila back, signing to a $2 million deal. So they were able to afford him. To me, and some other people, including Jeff Moss on Twitter, it was a very solid move because you need you weren't going to bring back Saltamacchia. You needed a backup to McCann. Avila is a far better defensive catcher than Saltamacchia. And in terms of last year, had a better OBP, OPS, and slugging percentage than James McCann. In fact, he even had a better WAR in terms of sabermetrics than McCann did. And it was in far fewer at-bats also. So hence of him being the backup catcher. So to get that type of player back and get him for only $2 million, very fine financial decision by the Tigers.
That's true. He even showed advanced statistics, the sabermetrics of weighted runs created and a weighted on-base average. Those numbers that Jeff Moss pointed out stood out to me, and I'll bet they stood out to you. So Al Avila made the right decision to bring his son back. Alex Avila, better in 2016 than most people think.
I love it.
But the one concern that still bothers me is Avila is struggling to stay healthy. He just keeps taking hit after hit after hit. But he keeps playing, and the more that happens, the more he struggles out there at the plate. But
yeah, it was definitely fairly evident when, let's be honest, Jim Leland did overtax him and overplay him in 2011, 2012. But like I said, since he's going to be brought on primarily, I believe, to be the backup, we shouldn't be too worried about him putting himself at or his health being at risk from an extended point of time.
Yeah, so they're going to have to be more careful with Alex Avila. So those are all the teams that we've covered. Now it's time for 5 questions. Are you ready, Ed?
Absolutely, and for the final time for 2016, let him rip, Taylor.
I will. Thank you very much.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. If the Lions lose, what are the chances by percentage they still clinch a playoff berth?
It depends, because let's remember, they will be the last game of that day. In fact, right, they're the last game of the whole regular season, since there's no Monday night game. So by the time they'll be playing the Sunday night start at 8:30, the Washington New York game will be long over by then, as well as Seattle and Atlanta. In terms of for just getting to the playoffs, if Washington loses, they're already in. If they but if Washington wins, it comes down to Detroit winning or go home. So it's either it's probably at best a 50-50, because we don't know what's going to happen with Washington and the Giants, and so it's almost a non-relevant point. So it really comes down to take care of business against the Packers, win or you're out.
Next question.
Question number 2. If they miss the playoffs, then what should the ramifications be in the offseason? I'd say fire Caldwell, and maybe the Fords should.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Fire him. Especially if he makes a dumbass play or decision or whatever that costs us the game. Bob Quinn, you gotta hope Bob Quinn is a smart enough guy to know what's going on here. He'll probably, bring Caldwell back if and when we go to playoffs or win the division. But if we don't, I think he would have to. Yeah, he already sat. He's already brought in the new regime. He was only keeping Caldwell on last year as a favor to the Ford family, to Martha Ford specifically. So I think just for this year, but I think since going forward, since he is the damn general manager or president, he should have to say so. Who's going to manage to run his team as the coach? So if we don't make the playoffs, I'd say it's a good chance we'll see the last of Jim Caldwell.
I have to agree, because I read an article. I ran into an article on my phone. Regardless of what happens, Jim Caldwell must be gone from Detroit, from Lions247sports.com. So if I could message that to you later on tonight, that'd be great. It may say that Jim Bob Cooter has done a good job, which is actually not the case. You're going to have to ignore that.
Next question.
Question number 3. Before I ask that question, in the Ottawa game, Jeff Blashill gave Andreas Athanasiou only 5 minutes and 14 seconds of ice time.
Oh, man!
Damn it!
Now, the question to that is Andreas Athanasiou being mistreated by Jeff Blashill again?
It's hard to say based off of that one instance if he's not getting consistent time or he's just being completely. If it was a healthy scratch, if it was being treated as a healthy scratch, sure, I would say disrespect. But that's a bit of a blurred line in the gray type of thing. It's not exactly black or white. So, to be definitive, I'll say no, but it's a definite wait and see option to that one.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Next question.
Question number 4, are the Pistons still having chemistry issues, or are they progressing a little bit?
I'd say a little bit, because like I said, even before that horrible display against Milwaukee, to be honest, though, that was just more so the fact that Jabari Parker, the star of the future from Milwaukee, and Giannis, like I mentioned before, the future superstar, he just took over that game. So they put up a good effort against Golden State, and albeit without LeBron, they did beat the defending world champions. So, because if they had lost against Cleveland, then yeah, I would say yes. But I'd say no. There's still some improvements that need to be worked on, obviously, but it's not quite as bad as it was a week or so ago.
Next question.
And finally, question number 5, if the Michigan Wolverines football team wins against Florida State in the Orange Bowl, how will they fare per record in 2017, and how will they fare if they lose to the Seminoles?
Well, either way, it's almost inconsequential. But I'd say with a win, they'll finish in the top 5 guaranteed. Maybe even in the final top 4 of when they release the final rankings after the championship games and all that. Even with a loss, they'll still be in the top 10. So in terms of looking forward to 2017, they'll start most likely as a fringe top 5, top 6 team, and it's up to them to make sure play the team they're ahead of them, beat them, and even if let's say they start the season at 6, if they win in impressive enough fashion in most of these games, and most importantly beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten title, they will be a shoo-in, a lock to get into the Final Four.
All right, yeah, that's I think Michigan will still have a pretty good season either way, even if it's not that great. So that's our 5-question segment. For all the listeners and fans out there, if you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That wraps up episode 245 of Spreaker's Feed on the Michigan Sports Truth, the end of 2016 edition. And I'll talk to you again next week on episode 246, the beginning of 2017 edition, as we ring in the new year of 2017.
Yep, and one more time to you and to all our listeners, thank you all so much for just paying attention to us, period, over this whole year, ups and downs and whatnot, setbacks and other minor occurrences that might have come up. As long as we were able to be here to produce and be informative and, above all else, truthful to you, and you responded to us by giving us our numbers the way you've been as of late, we will be sure to bring in even more so. You will be even better in 2017 as we were here in 2016. So thank you to all. Once again, belated Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year by the time we'll see you. And to you as well, Taylor.
Thank you. So we apologize for any technical difficulties, but before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well. And follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET. That's Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section. Also, like their Facebook page, Sports Radio Detroit, and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips and at EdSmith313, and like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group, The Michigan Sports Truth. We'll talk to you next week. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks very much for listening. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.